Hi, yoga friends. I thought it'd be fun to show you how I plan a class. And so the first thing I always think about is what kind of class it is and who am I teaching. And so let's say that I want to teach a gentle yoga practice for people that are, have normal jobs working at a desk. And I do teach a class like this right now. And so first I always think about who it is that I'm teaching and what kind of practice it is. So we'll put that at the top. And then I think about, okay, well, I want it to be a pretty gentle practice. And so that will mean that we're not going to do like any really crazy transitions or super crazy poses. And the people that I'm working with are people that have jobs at a desk. And so the first thing that I think about then is what considerations do we have for these people who have a job sitting. And so usually people that sit at a desk a lot, they have issues with their low back. So sometimes it feels stiff or sore or weak. And so we want to make sure we address the low back in our practice. And then we also, a lot of times people that sit at a desk also complain of neck and shoulder tension. And so we want to make sure that we have some things in the practice that address the neck and shoulders. And then the other thing that a lot of people that just live their lives have, stress. And so what do we do in general to deal with stress? So we want to make sure that we have some poses that are good for the low back, and then that also address the neck and shoulders. And how do we address stress? And stress is not so much about the postures, but forward bends and twists can help calm the nervous system down. And so those are good poses for stress. And also the biggest thing that helps deal with stress is working with the breath. And so you can use a separate pranayama practice. But in this case, I would say we'll just focus on simple breath awareness. So I like to begin any kind of practice with a little warm-up for the spine. And so Chakravakasana is a great one from that. So that's just hands and knees to child's pose. And then I'll start off right away with a really simple back bend to continue to warm up the muscles of the spine. And so a little Bhujangasana will come next. And then even though it's a gentle practice, I like to do at least a couple standing postures. And so to transition to stand first, we'll come back to that child's pose position. And this time the hands will come onto the low back. And then stand up on the knees in Vajrasana. And so this arm sweeping from the hands behind the back up overhead, that's a great way to address this, a little bit of this neck and shoulder tension by just starting to get the shoulders moving a little bit. And you can have the head face straight ahead in this position, or you could turn your head from side to side. So when you exhale and come back into this position, you could turn your head rather than have your forehead down on the ground. And then another nice one to do to help transition out of the work day, I like to do Tadasana. So let's say that we did this practice at the end of the day. So I'm going to put this up here like PM after work. And so doing a little practice in Tadasana. So this would be an inhale coming up onto the toes and then exhale back down to his flat foot. That's a nice way just to concentrate on balance and breath awareness and relationship between breath and movement. So this requires a little bit of concentration, even though it's simple, and that can help people transition from workday things into this yoga space of really paying attention to what's going on in the body. And then from there, okay, we got like a little bit of movement going. Then I would do a little bit of a simple version of chair pose. And so for this one, you'll bend the knees on your exhale and round the low back into a forward bend with bent knees, and then inhale to stand back up again. Should probably put some breath notes in there. So we'll go back and fill in the breath notes at the end of this. So this is a good one for exercising the legs and the low back a little bit. And this is a good one because you'll start to exercise the glutes and the hamstrings a little bit. And those are things that just get like dead from sitting in the chair for a long time. So it's a little bit of work, but it can still be gentle work. And then from there, again, a little bit of gentle work in Trikonasana or triangle pose. And so what I would do for this one is I do like a little bit of in and out of this side bend shape. And then after I've done that a few times, then I would hold it for a couple repetitions so that you come down and then sweep the arm. So when you inhale, you'd reach the arm forward, and then when you exhale, you reach the arm back. And you could look up or down in this position. A little head turn there would be good, again, to deal with some of this neck and shoulder tension. And then I do a simple standing forward bend. So this time without the bent knees. And you could come in and out of this one or stay down for a few breaths to really help stretch the low back there. And then I would transition back down towards the floor and do this little, oops, I don't know what happened to that guy's nose there, it's all right. Do a little bit of a low lunge. And so for this one, forget about that. It's a knee down lunge, and then when you inhale, you come into this back bend and lift the chest. So this one, again, will help with being in that seated position. So the front of the hip flexors will get a nice stretch all along the front of the body, all that stuff that gets kind of compressed from schlumping in your chair during the day. And then that seems like really we've done quite a lot of work, and so this is a good point to come down and lay back on the back. And this is called Apanasana. So we do just a little stretch for the low back here. So when you exhale, you'll bring your knees into your chest. And then when you inhale, you just press your arms to straight. And you'll notice in between a lot of these postures, we have a lot of forward bends in here. So this allows you to stretch the low back after moving your spine in a different direction. So after a side bend, you stretch the back. After a back bend, you stretch the back. And then we'll come down into a twist. So laying on the back, arms through T. Sorry about that extra arm there. And exhale to twist. And so like I mentioned, this is these twists are a nice way to help calm the nervous system down. So putting those at the end of the practice will really make a nice relaxing kind of practice. And then we'll just start another column here. I'm getting towards the end of the paper. Looks like you guys can still see that. So we did our reclining twist. Then we'll do this leg extension thing. And you can either do this, let's do it with arms relaxed along by the sides. And then when you inhale, your arms will reach overhead and your legs will stretch up towards the ceiling. So again, this is a nice way to stretch the back of the body, the back of the legs. If you've spent a lot of time in the day in a seated position, maybe I should put a working, also sitting, folks. And this is a good preparation after doing this reclining twist to this leg extension thing. That's a nice preparation to sit up and do a seated forward bend. And when we get towards the end of the practice, it's nice to do like a little bit of coming in and out of the pose, and then a little bit of staying down to help continue to relax. And then after you've done that, especially if you spend a little bit of time in that seated forward bend, it might be nice to do a little Dvipada Pittam, or bridge pose. And this lifting the hips when you're laying on your back. Again, this is a nice way to stretch the front of the hips, a lot like this knee down lunge, so that it's a good compensation for this seated forward bend, and a nice way to exercise the back side of the body also. So that's a pretty complete practice. We've got a little bit of side bending, a little bit of back bending, a little bit of twist, quite a bit of forward bends in there. And so this is a really complete practice if you've been spending a whole day at work sitting and doing your job. And so that brings us to the part where we get to rest. So on its own is a pretty complete practice, but if you wanted to, for example, deal with this energetic component of coping with stress, I might go back and add in some breath work in here. So, for example, I might work on lengthening the inhale in this Tadasana, and a little bit of retention. That's the hold after inhale in this triangle pose. And so all this stuff takes practice. I know that from my experience that working with inhale and retention, those are good things, good parts of the breath to work with in this axial extension, and also in this arm sweep, in this lateral bend. And then I know from experience also that the place to work with the exhale is in twists and forward bend. And so I might add in a little bit of breath work, maybe in this reclining twist and in this seated forward bend to work on inhale and retention at the first half of the practice, and a little bit more with exhale and suspension at the back end of practice. And so if you wanted to continue and do a seated pranayama practice, then you'd be prepared to do maybe a samana kind of breath, which would be equal inhale and exhale. So that would be a good choice if you were going to continue to do like cook dinner and spend a little bit more time, awake after doing your job, or might want to spend a little bit more time at the end of the practice, focusing more on exhale and suspension in particular, and then do some kind of pranayama that focuses on exhale and suspension. So hope you enjoyed that little bit of behind the scenes look at how I craft a practice. And if you have any questions, let me know, and I'll go back and clean all this up. You don't have to be bored watching me white out all of these mistakes, and then I'll clean this up and then post a picture for you guys. So hope you enjoyed, and if you would like me to design a practice just for you, then you can send me an email or message me here, and I can help design a custom yoga practice just for you. So thanks for watching. Bye-bye.